Hey guys, thanks for watching. Today we're going to be doing the Boxy Pixel Brass Super Nintendo shell. And this one always intrigued me on Boxy Pixel's website, but I never saw any videos or posts on Reddit about this specific shell. It's probably due to the price, but I just thought it looked really cool and I kind of wanted to be one of the first people to post something about it and really talk about how neat this shell is. I'm not affiliated with Boxy Pixel at all. And, if you're interested in purchasing it, it's not cheap. I'll talk about the price at the end. But, if you're an enthusiast like me about Super Nintendo, this is definitely a pretty cool pickup, and I'd highly recommend it. The shell swap requires you to have an original Super Nintendo controller or the 8BitDo wireless kit, which you can purchase online. Taki Udon's also coming out with a 1000 hertz polling rate Super Nintendo controller, which probably would work with this, I'd imagine, because you'd need an original Super Nintendo controller for that too. But I'd imagine it'd work for this Boxy Pixel shell too. Anyway, you can see I already had a Super Nintendo controller taken apart, and this is at 2x speed, and I'm just trying to figure out how the membranes go in there. So on the regular Super Nintendo controller, the membranes have little holders from the plastic that hold them in place, and they have that for the D-pad, but they don't have it for the buttons there. So these little prongs are something you'll need for the shoulder buttons. It doesn't come with the shell swap, and you can see why it's needed. It's needed to pivot the L and R shoulder triggers on the shell itself. And the hardest part about getting this thing to work after I got it all assembled and testing was those triggers. Because it's metal and those membranes are so, I don't know, it needs like the perfect alignment to make sure they're getting contact with the motherboard from the Super Nintendo motherboard to where it may not work right away. And then I'll also let you guys know I made a mistake here. Because this is brass, it was shorting the L and R buttons, so they weren't actually able to trigger here. So you'll need to put some electric tape at the top there to cover the contacts to make sure that the L and R button work after you put them in there. And you can see I'm just trying to finagle the membrane buttons for the L and R, and I'm kind of testing all the buttons out and making sure they feel good from below the shell before assembling it all together. And I would highly recommend not screwing in the shell, just putting it on there and testing it with a game first to make sure everything works. So that way you can keep kind of messing with the buttons or maybe messing with the electric tape as you're reassembling and putting the shell back together. And for whatever reason, I didn't like that L shoulder trigger, so I just swapped it out with another one and see if maybe that felt better. And you can see I know how I played so much Super Nintendo that I know how they should feel. They kind of feel a little jerky. I don't know how to describe it. But you can feel responsiveness when you push in the button. It's kind of like a brown switch on a mechanical keyboard, if you're familiar with a brown switch, which just gives you a little bit of feedback on the L and R triggers. And here's the finished product. I'm just testing out the buttons again, making sure everything feels good. And, it's a little dirty for me holding it. And then I'm kind of seeing what if I put the original colored buttons from a Super Famicom controller in there to see if that would look cool. And, I ended up not doing that. And you can see I'm screwing this in, and this is my first time doing it, so learn from my mistakes. Do not screw it in. Test it out first, and then screw it in. And like I said earlier, I missed the L and R tape covering on the control board because they were getting shorted out on this controller and they weren't working. And the way I tested out if the L and R button working is you'll need a game that uses L and R. And one of the better games I think to test this out is Super Mario Kart, because you need those to jump and drift in Super Mario Kart. I mean, the buttons feel amazing, so I was kind of bummed that I had to take it apart to kind of test it out. At first, I thought maybe my controller was defaulting but it turns out you just need this tape here, like I'm showcasing here, just to cover those contacts, because otherwise the brass will just short the controller, the L and R buttons anyway. Here's some of the clickiness. It's pretty clicky. It feels good. I liked it. And now we're going to showcase some Mario Kart to show you guys the buttons working. So now it's time to talk about the price. I mean, these things are obviously not cheap. It was $110 just for the brass shell itself. And then the buttons cost even more. So the buttons are separate from the shell purchase. And if you wanted the black version, it's even a little cheaper, $60. And I will say that after assembling the black version, the weight is more in line with an original Super Nintendo controller. So if you're going to be playing some heavy gaming, I would recommend the black or the silver unfinished aluminum shell, so that way you get the original feel of a Super Nintendo controller. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.